to really fight in close range and contest in trades with people in that range. He's excellent at harassing, and in 1v1, he's hilariously good if the person operating him is good. In PvE, you know, you would think that since he's a gender unlocked, that he should play exactly like the War Dancer class. But I found his playstyle to be very frustrating because of the skills that changed were they required you to be in a certain spot to charge up and to hit in a positional, and it just didn't feel fun to me. It put out huge numbers, but it didn't feel fun to me.
Yeah. With all of that being said, though, we just did Be a Kiss today, and I think in all of my raids, I've always brought my friend Encore, who's a striker. So
yeah, I mean, first of all, it has a top tier synergy, so he has an amazing party buff. And then second of all, if the person is good with him, they can MVP on it. It's a super strong class in the right hands, but it takes a person who likes that play style to enjoy playing it.
Super mobile, like in PvP as well. Like, I've got smashed by good strikers just because I'm not used to them yet, you know. So because they just came to RU. So overall, you know, again, like, take all of this with a grain of salt. We're just giving you some insight on the class in particular, but you will hear things about strikers not being so amazing in PvE or PvP content. But again, I've done all of the raids that I can do, and I'm moving on to doing Cuckoo Satan with a striker. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. With that being said, let's talk about the Battle Master, which is like the female counterpart or the War Dancer to the striker. I mean, it's just gonna.
As most of you should know by now, Lost Ark does not have the holy trinity of tank, healer and DPS. Basically everyone is a DPS. Yet, two classes stand out as they are focusing on supporting their party more than any of the others. Shields, heals and buffs across the board, with a huge variety to boost your party in different ways. In this video, we are going to cover one of the two main supports of Lost Ark, the Bard. Before we jump into the video, my name is Fox and I stream nearly every day at twitch.tv/hi_am_Fox. I'd love to see you come by and say hi. The Bard is one of the currently two available main support classes in Lost Ark. If you're curious, the other one is the Paladin, or so-called Holy Knight. Bard supports its party with various buffs to do more damage, take less damage, shields, heals, and so on. Basically anything you can imagine. This comes at a price: low personal damage. Bard stands out because it offers things not many other classes can offer and are very, very desired in endgame content. Usually, every party should have at least one support per 4 players. The reason why it is so valuable is because the only way to heal in Lost Ark is by using potions, which cost gold. With a Bard, you get not only heals but also preventive shields and damage reduction, or buffs. Most raids have a limited amount of maximum possible deaths or even 0. Having this kind of support makes it much easier to complete certain raids because members of the party stay alive much longer and easier. I get many questions daily about Bard damage, Bard solo content, etc. Yes, Bard's damage is absolutely horrible. It is designed to be a support class, and that's noticeable. Playing a DPS spec is borderline trolling on Bard. The only reason to play damage oriented is if you find yourself in solo content or have too many supports in a party. Leveling on Bard also isn't the easiest due to lack of damage. I suggest you to bribe a friend who plays a DPS to help you and party up. But before you worry, you are able to clear solo content, just like any other class. Well, maybe a bit slower. To give you a fast recap of how Bard plays, it is a ranged dom that uses musical attacks and dances to then deal its damage or help its party. You are mostly a range focused job and only going to be in your range to shield melee DPS. Bard by itself isn't very hard to play in my opinion. The difficulty of the job comes with knowledge of the raids or encounters you are doing. It is important to know as a bard when damage is going out and what mechanics you have to shield to allow your party to keep full uptime or safe usage of items. Furthermore, it comes in very handy to know how other classes work, so that you can use your damage buffs at the right time to boost your party at the right moment. On a side note, I personally love playing with bards. Here's a very short clip of me praising the bard's presence in one of the endgame raids. Oh, got the heals, look at this. Oh, I fucking love bard dudes. Oh, ultimate, more shields. Look at this, no damage. I fucking love playing with a bard, man. I swear. Now, let's go over some of the specifics of bard. Just like every other job, you have an identity gauge, which are your 3 bars in the middle of your combat UI. They fill up over time by hitting the boss or using certain abilities. Once you have 1 bar full, you are able to play a special song, either the Serenade of Valor, which boosts your own and your party's damage, or the Serenade of Salvation, which is a large AoE that heals up everyone in it over time. The more bars you have filled, the stronger the effect of the song. It's pretty simple and straightforward. You mostly want to use the Serenade of Salvation. Please mind, this is the translated Russian name and possibly is called very different in the English version, but TLDR, it's the healing song. Anyway, so you mostly want to use your healing song to keep your party members as much alive as possible. It is by your judgment that you decide to use the damage buff or the healing aura. Otherwise, Bard is honestly pretty simple. You have your typical AoE damage reduction and AoE damage buff, etc. There's not much to explain about Bard, besides that you want to combo your own damage buff with your highest hitting skill, and that's about it. It's a very straightforward job. One more thing to notice is that you want to use your ultimate either in specific situations depending on the raid you are attempting, or on cooldown to generate as much identity gauge as possible. Before we pass on to more specifics, I want to share with you how I feel about Bard, because these videos are supposed to help you decide if this job is for you or not. So, personally I feel bored when playing Bard in group content. I just basically sit on the sidelines, press buttons to help my party and pray that they do enough damage to carry me through the raid. Please keep in mind this is a very subjective opinion and is the reason also why I don't really know what to explain more about Bard's playstyle besides singing some songs and supporting your party members. It is just not my jam, to be honest, but I can also definitely see the appeal of why someone would enjoy this playstyle, as it is very support focused and I know many people that enjoy that. I have to admit that the higher I go in content and eye level, the more I feel relevant in what I'm doing. In low level content, I really do not feel impactful. With that said, let's get into some of the core skills you want to use on Bard and some other specifics. Arguably for Bard's raid setup, you have a lot of freedom of what you want to run, besides a few must-have skills which I'm going to name now. Please note again, all names are subject to change for the Amazon release due to this being the Russian server with translation. That's why I'm adding the pictures into the video so you can still see what skill it is. First off is Wind of Music, as it is your main shielding tool. We use this to shield our whole party. Then we run Soundwave Vibration, as this is one of our 2 big damage buffs to our party. Make sure to aim this so even stupid can stand it. Another must-have is Sound Tolerant.
What the frig did you just say?
Shield our whole party. Russian server with translation. That's why I'm adding the pictures into the video so you can still see what skill it is. First off is Wind of Music, as it is your main
Wind of Music. Okay. Sound shock.
shielding tool. We use this to shield our whole party. Then we run sound wave vibration, as this is one of our 2 big damage buffs to our party. Make sure
How the fuck is that a heal? I have no idea how that works. How the fuck is that a heal?
to aim this so even stupid can stand it. Another must-have. Make sure to aim this so even stupid can stand it. Another must-have is Sound Tonic. It is by far our highest damage skill in our kit, so we run that to support our.
Shit.
Our party with some damage for a change. Another very commonly run skill is Indomitable Performance, which not only is a damage reduction but also an additional shield depending on the tripods you choose. Lastly, the most significant damage buff.
Welcome into another class guide for Lost Ark Western release. We're going through all 15 classes that are going to be available upon launch for Western Europe and North America. And what I'm doing with these is I'm not going to be
Project Flame. You guys gotta open up your horizons, man. That game is. You guys don't even have level 17 characters. Why would you wanna? That game is so.
The best thing you can do
outdated, man. This game is a brand new game, 20 times better. More skill required.
Don't worry so much about speed running or getting tier lists and things like that. So I'm not going to go through meta. And honestly, the
More
meta between
moves.
Russia, Japan, and
Better
Korea is already
PvP.
different.
I mean,
I'm
just
willing to
everything.
bet that it's going to be different for Western Europe and for North America as well. So we'll get emergent gameplay, I'm sure, when the game gets in the hands of Western players, and we'll probably get new metas.
Zuba.
As well, so all that becomes
Zuba's a good
relevant.
game.
What doesn't become
It's just
relevant
outdated.
is what we're going to cover in this
I
guide,
love Zuba,
is
don't get me wrong.
how the class works, the game
It is a
design,
great game.
the mechanics, the gameplay, the decision making that goes.
But it's just outdated. I played I've only been playing for like 3.5 months, maybe 4 at most. So, all these clowns that are all 17 with all their friends and everything else. For me now, I'm so new that, like, you guys are new. Unless you spend money. By the time you get up to 17 in that game, without spending money, you'll be playing a brand new game. That game will be gone. It's eventually gonna happen. I for the first time yesterday, I was looking at the stuff online, like people who stream it and do everything, and I'm like, wow, like that's atrocious. Like my stream is 425,000 times better, and some of these guys are getting views. It's all, well, I can go on and on, but at the end of the day, the game is good. It's really good, but unfortunately, the way they have it, they have no system. Their ranking system is flawed. It's just everything is horrible.
So playing that class.
All horrible. It really is unfortunate too. Take care, brush your hair, Pop. People are so stupid, naive, dumb. What do you do? Anything and everything. You can craft, you can have your own home, you could PvP, you could run around, do quests, you can... It's like a MMORPG. You can basically do everything. The reason why I like the game, the reason why I want to play it, like this stuff that I'm doing now, I hate doing. I really don't like doing. but that's how you level up and stuff. And I'm doing it just to learn the abilities and everything else and the way my combos go. But you could do really anything. I'm doing it for PvP because the PvP is going to be awesome. I don't know. I mean, player versus player. I'm sure everybody knows that, but just making sure. Yeah, because the way you could do things, and it reminds me of like League of Legends almost. That's how the gameplay is. Like you got to use your mouse and everything to move, shoot, all that stuff. But the PvP is going to be awesome. That's really what I'm playing it for. This stuff, the quests, killing, getting XP, getting level, whatever. It is what it is. Like this is a dungeon. You can do dungeons. You can do it by yourself. You can do it with people. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's a cool game. Unfortunately, I'm learning a lot. There's a lot to learn. So I still can't even figure out where am I healing. I'm supposed to have these spells that heal, and I don't know. I can't find them. You can like level up your spells so that they're more powerful. Like I said, what really got me into it is the fighting style. I like the way this is fighting wise, movement. I played Zuba earlier. Played for an hour. Played with a bunch of 12s. We ran into 17s, and these are the games you want to get into. And you know, they care about their community. They always have updates. They always have big updates. I know it doesn't look so fun on my thing because, like I said, I'm still learning everything. Like I have no clue. But then again, I am just learning. Just keep shooting over there with my arrows there. Again, my arrow's over here, she's shooting over there. What the fuck is that? These are the combat skills. I think it has something to do with this, but I'm trying to read.
From the class in group play,
Trying to listen
and
to this
what
guy.
you get out of the class as you go into the end game and start unlocking more in-depth modifiers and customizing systems for your class. But first, if you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Who knows? I might even be streaming right now. So let's jump into the Bard. The Bard is one of two support classes in the game. Technically, the Gun Lancer or Warlord can do shielding and stuff, and cleansing, which is super nice. But Bard and Paladin are typically viewed as pseudo-support, quote-unquote support. They are support when played at the highest level, but it's good to know that in Lost Ark, there aren't traditional roles. So when you go into group play with Lost Ark, you're not going to have a tank, some amount of DPS, and a healer. You just have people. Everyone goes in, everyone does damage, everyone attacks, everyone dodges mechanics, and it's more about being the best version of your class than it is about filling a specific role. However, Bard and Paladin kind of break that mold a little bit in that they have a little bit lower damage than every class in the game. So one of the details for Bard, as well with Paladin, is you will not be doing as much damage as other classes in general. But to compensate for that, you have access to support abilities. So if you're the person that likes playing support, you like utility, you like healing in traditional MMOs, Bard or Paladin can somewhat fill that role for you, even though you don't really need a healer, right? 4 DPS classes can go in and clear all content. You don't need a healer, but the Bard kind of fills that role. So the way this works, just like the Paladin, you have your, let's just go through the very basics of the class. Your basic attack looks like this. Everything the Bard does is a little bit slow, but kind of finessey, and has tons of chords and sounds. I think the visual effects are great. Personally, for me, I don't like hearing the sounds all the time, but it does kind of have that effect. For most classes, the basic attack is kind of irrelevant. You don't really have use cases for it. Some classes do, but it's not consistent across the game, so just keep that in mind. Next is the Illuminability. The Bard has this, which is a super fast teleport on a long cooldown. 10 seconds, I believe, is the longest cooldown for any movement in the game, at least of the classes that we're getting in the West. So know that it's a much longer cooldown, but you have a lot of CC and healing and shielding in your kit, so having a longer cooldown on your movement gets counteracted by that. It's a medium distance dash on a fast pace with a long cooldown. So just keep that in mind, is that that's your movement ability. Every class has a different one. Now let's go over the identity of the class, which is essentially the passive or the core mechanic set that defines that class over all of the others. The Bard has this chord system that they can use to build up. You see these 3 little blue marks here? Those build up as you attack. So just like the Paladin, when you have none, you have to land attacks in order to build it up. You can see it building there. So as you're attacking and doing things, you'll be able to build that up. So even though you do have support style gameplay, you become a better support when you're attacking, dealing damage, and getting in the combat. This game is all about combat, and it honestly should be for how good the combat is. But that's the core mechanic set for the Bard.
There is a reminder for AP.
Chords, there's 3 discrete ones. When you get 1 full, you can spend it on 2 different abilities which have different effects. The first is called Serenade of Valor. I'm on the Russian client right now with translations. It might be called something different when you play it on the Western release. But what this is it gives you a damage buff, and then everyone around you gets a damage buff based on how many chords you spend when you activate it. Super great buff, and it goes up to 15% damage. A group-wide... Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another class guide for Lost Ark Western release. We're going through all 15 classes that are going to be available upon launch for Western Europe and North America. And what I'm doing with these is I'm not going to be going into advanced details. This guide will not be about what's meta, what abilities to use, how to modify them, what your tripods are, all that stuff. Because honestly, when a game comes to a new region, I think the best thing you can do is just get in, pick a class you like, and play it, experience it, enjoy it, get to max rank, and then figure out what you're going to do. Don't worry so much about speed running or getting tier lists and things like that. So I'm not going to go through meta. And honestly, the meta between Russia, Japan, and Korea is already different, and I'm willing to bet that it's going to be different for Western Europe and for North America as well. So we'll get emergent gameplay, I'm sure, when the game gets in the hands of Western players, and we'll probably get new metas as well, so all that becomes irrelevant. What doesn't become irrelevant is what we're going to cover in this guide, which is how the class works, the game design, the mechanics, the gameplay, the decision-making that goes into playing that class, and then what you can expect from the class in group play, and what you get out of the class as you go into the end game and start unlocking more in-depth modifiers and customizing systems for your class. But first, if you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Who knows? I might even be streaming right now. So let's jump into the Bard. The Bard is one of 2 support classes in the game. Technically, the Gun Lancer or Warlord can do shielding and stuff, and cleansing, which is super nice. But Bard and Paladin are typically viewed as pseudo-support, quote-unquote support. They are support when played at the highest level, but it's good to know that in Lost Ark, there aren't traditional roles. So when you go into group play with Lost Ark, you're not going to have a tank, some amount of DPS, and a healer. You just have people. Everyone goes in, everyone does damage, everyone attacks, everyone dodges mechanics, and and it's more about being the best version of your class than it is about filling a specific role. However, Bard and Paladin kind of
I want to share with you guys an easy to pick up Bard leveling guide for launch. Bard is a super fun class to play, but it can run into some difficulties while leveling, specifically in solo instances, since they feel a little lacking in the damage department. However, with a solid leveling build, you're going to set yourself up for success and get to 50 in no time. Also, please like and subscribe if this guide helps you out. And I'm going to be streaming Lost Ark on Twitch, so catch me there too for more support content. Links in the description. That being said, the first thing I want to go over is just how much customization you have with your builds. You can literally reset skills wherever, whenever you want, excluding certain boss fights. So there isn't any stress if you get started with a different build or you just want to try out new skills. This also means that when you first play, the amount of skills and skill upgrades can be a bit overwhelming, especially when you're deciding which skills to beef out. Skill points are gained as you level, and they let you enhance skills to tier 1, 2, and 3 respectively. Each tier costs more points, and the last tier gives some pretty awesome bonuses. I'm going to start by going over your core leveling skills, which are the skills you should aim to get to tier 3 first, along with some
Yeah. Of course. So shut that. I still don't get this shit. Shut
Suggestions for filler skills that you're welcome to mess with or change out as you go. And this isn't an end game support build of any kind. This will just give you a higher damage output to get through leveling content. So keep that in mind too. Also, quick disclaimer, some skill names might be different for NAEU, but the pictures and icons should still be the same. The first skill I recommend you start putting points into is Dissonance. This low cooldown skill leaves AoE puddles on the floor that you can lure mobs into. It slows them and staggers them and is all around pretty great for picking off trash. As you level this skill, you should grab Melody Increase for more cord energy for your identity skill, Survival of the Fittest for a 100 damage boost to mobs, and Enhanced Cord for another base 100% damage increase. The next core skill to put points into will be Sound Hollow. This skill at tier 3 will be one of your saving graces in solo instances, as it does amazing single target damage. I mean, it's a giant lizard, what did you expect? The only downsides of this skill are that you can't move while casting it, and it does have a longer cooldown. For skill points, I go Focus Sound for extra stacking damage, Enhanced Duration for added ticks of damage, and Concentrated Fire, which takes away your ability to change the direction of the beam, but in turn increases the damage of it by 740%. Timing this skill well, along with using your attack buffs, that I'll cover next, before you cast it, will turn this into your hardest hitting skill and make leveling content much more manageable. The next core skill to start putting points into is Stigma. This is another AoE damaging skill that you can pair with Dissonance for a clean handling of mobs. Like Dissonance, this creates a puddle on the ground that you can kite mobs into, and it even does more damage over time. For skill points, I go Enhanced Duration for longer uptime, Brilliant Stigma for extra damage, and Stigma of Pain for another pretty significant damage boost. The final skill I recommend you put points into is Sound Shock, which is another very low cooldown skill. For this skill, I grab Constant Explosion for an added damage effect, Enhanced Shock for a base damage increase, and Auto Fire, which allows the skill to fire 2 spheres instead of just 1. And aside from those 4 core skills, I also recommend running with Heavenly Performance for an attack speed and mana boost. And at tier 3, this also becomes a damage buff skill, which is awesome. You can cast Heavenly Performance and use your damage boost minstrel skill, Serenade of Valor, before popping high damage skills like Sound Hollow for a really decent window of burst damage too. The rest of the skills are really whatever you would like to run. I personally like Soundwave Vibration for a nice AoE juggling skill, and Overture of Storm for a stun. I recommend playing with different skills, aside from those 4 core skills, as you go, to get a better feel for Bard and her kit. I wish you guys all the best luck leveling, and I'll have a level...
Where's the fucking healing spells? This game's got me. so weird.
For leveling skills, which are the skills you should aim. Icons should still be the same. The first skill I recommend you start wee puddles on the floor that you can lure mobs into. It slows them and staggers them and is all around pretty great for picking off trash. As you level this skill, you should grab Melody Increase for more chord energy for your identity skill, Survival of the Fittest for a 100% damage boost to mobs, and Enhanced Chord for another base 100% damage increase. The next core skill to put points into will be Sound Hauling. This skill at tier 3 will be one of your saving graces in solo instances, as it does amazing single target damage. I mean, it's a giant laser beam, what did you expect? The only downsides of this skill are that you can't move while casting it, and it does have a longer cooldown. For skill points, I go Focus Sound for extra stacking damage, Enhanced Duration for added ticks of damage, and Concentrated Fire, which takes away your ability to change the direction of the beam, but in turn increases the damage of it by 740%. Timing this skill well, along with using your attack buffs that I'll cover next, before you cast it, will turn this into your hardest hitting skill and make leveling content much more manageable. The next core skill to start putting points into is Stigma. This is another AoE damaging skill that you can pair with Dissonance for a clean handling of mobs. Like Dissonance, this creates a puddle on the ground that you can kite mobs into, and it even does more damage over time. For skill points, I go Enhanced Duration for longer uptime, Brilliant Stigma for
I still don't know where my healing spells are. Zuba is another game for the phone. Shit still makes no sense.
When magical spells take the form of musical tune. To provide numerous buffs, debuffs, shields, and more, this is what you get. Hey there friends, it's Livy here, and welcome to Legacy Game. Today we're diving into Lost Ark and sharing our ultimate guide for the Bard. We plan on doing many class guides for Lost Ark. Our first Sorceress Guide is already up on the channel, and you can check that out right now. Our goal is to give you as much insight about a class as we can, and help you figure out if it's the right one for you to make. This is not an endgame build guide. Those will come later, in separate videos. The reason being that they're going to take a lot more time and experience to put together, especially when we don't even have the true endgame content unlocked just yet. Lumping all of this into one video just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So if you're new to Lost Ark, or just looking to create a new character but don't want to wait till you reach level cap to see if it's any good, you've come to the right place. Let's start at the top. Why play the Bard? For everyone out there that loves to support a team in group content with shields, AoE buffs, debuffs, and even heals at times, this is where the Bard is an absolute ace in the support category. The Bard is even capable of tackling solo content through numerous AoE damaging spells, while remaining quite tanky through all of her shielding spells, as a trade-off for lower DPS. Many of her abilities have additional utility that disrupt enemy movement, either at a base level or via a tripod, and that helps you keep distance between enemies and your allies. Now the Bard does, however, lack forms of mobility with her spells, meaning you will be relying on your shields, blink dash, and positioning 99% of the time. Additionally, the Bard's special class resource comes in the form of a Serenade meter. When using skills and dealing damage to enemies, you'll fill up a max of 3 bars that enable the use of Serenade of Courage, a team-wide buff that increases the damage of the Bard and all party members, or Serenade of Salvation, a potent AoE burst heal for all party members that stand in it. For each bar that is filled before use, the potency of the chosen skill increases. Additionally, this resource can be gained even faster through tripods that grant melody increase. If you're someone that's been looking for a real support class, a true magic user that isn't afraid to be right up in the action while protecting their teammates, then the Bard is the class for you. When it comes to building out a Bard, it really comes down to 2 things. Having a mobbing build, one where you can focus on dealing damage to all ranges of enemies, both big and small, and a group support build, where you instead shift most of your kit to keeping you, and more importantly, your teammates, alive through whatever might come their way. Instead of going through each ability individually, we're going to focus on the builds themselves, as that's ultimately going to be more valuable for you as a player. Now the mobbing build that we're going to talk about could also be considered viable for leveling, so keep that in mind if you're picking up the Bard for the first time. When it comes to mobbing and leveling, the Bard actually has a ton of tools at her disposal. They aren't by any means the best DPS skills in the game, but they certainly get the job done, even better when in a group. Now there are a few abilities that really stand out as essential when approaching this type of content, but I also want to point out that when leveling, don't try to rush max out a skill right away. Spread your points around, increasing skills to level 4 for their first tripods until you have enough total points to respec and fully upgrade a different skill. Now this will keep you on power curve and give you more options early on. Dissonance is hands down the single most effective skill that you will use for clearing most mobs in the game. And even better, it's one that you have access to right from the start. After a short cast and delay, a clash of musical notes will land at the target location, dealing at a base level moderate damage every 0.5 seconds for 5 seconds, and reducing the movement speed of all enemies caught in it by 60%. With a 5-second duration and only an 8-second cooldown that starts the moment you cast it, you're looking at a highly spammable skill that gets insane with correct tripod allocation. For tripods, I highly recommend Melody Increase, Law of the Jungle, and Harmony Enhancement. The goal here is to not only increase your resource generation for your Serenade meter on large groups of enemies, but also massively increase the damage. Law of the Jungle doubles the damage against named foes or lower. Now in Lost Ark, enemy tiers typically go normal, elite, named, boss, and so on. As a result, this damage buff will apply to most enemies that you come across, especially while leveling. And this gets further multiplied by Harmony Enhancement, making this a spammable CC that tears through groups of enemies. Soundholic is the second most important skill that you will max out, as it can chew through higher HP enemies and bosses once you have it spec'd out correctly. This ability will fire a blinding ray of light, dealing damage for 3 seconds in the direction that you're casting, locking you in place but allowing you to rotate. Now don't get too used to rotating your beam, and instead get used to just lining your enemies up for this attack, since one of the tripods that we will take will prevent you from turning. Now for tripods, I highly recommend Sound Concentration, Sustained Enhancement, and Focus Fire to make this attack hit like a truck. Sound Concentration and Sustained Enhancement will boost your damage per hit, your channel duration, and the amount of times that it hits during that time. Now this is important because this helps offset the negatives of Focus Fire. While it prevents you from moving and halves your duration, you instead get a massive 700% damage bonus. Believe me when I say, this is absolutely noticeable. Stigma is another skill that shreds all mobs just as well as Dissonance, but with a downside of a cooldown that is twice as long. But that's perfectly fine when weaving in between all of your other skills. Stigma, after a brief casting period, will place a pulsating AoE that not only staggers, but does increased damage every time it pulses. For tripods, we take Sustained Enhancement, Brilliant Stigma, and Pain Brand. Now Sustained Enhancement gives us 2 extra pulses, which means even higher scaling damage, but also does 35% more damage to enemies when you aren't in a party. Now that's perfect for leveling and an incredible 4-point
You're
value.
back. I'm back. Yeah, it seems like the party wants a bard. Or a pally. I think I'm gonna try to... I'm gonna try to do a pally real quick. Let's see what he's like.